What is up, guys? It is Grindy Gears here, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of a showcase video. The showcase topic today is going to be the Titan Industries heavy excavator. It's my latest piece of heavy equipment, has a lot of really cool features, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So we're just going to go into third person for a second here, and just a little bit of a pan around here. Now, this unit is fairly big at over 5,000 blocks for a small grid, and as you can see, weighing in at just a touch over 500,000 kilograms or 500 tons. It's a fairly straightforward system that features several rather unique portions that most people would call impossible in this game. But just to go over them really briefly, on the end there, as you can see by the movement, we have our bucket that functions normal. We also have our thumb, which really doesn't do a lot in this build because, as I'll close it up there, doesn't really interface very well with the drills. But it's still there because, you know, no sense getting rid of old functionality, right? That's just redundant. So anyway, open that up. Then we also have the boom and our stick, which is pretty normal. But on like most excavators, we also have a toggle joint. So right in the middle of the boom there, as you can see, we can either extend or lower it to either reach new heights, as I'll actually go all the way up there, because you can actually go up quite a ways once it's pretty much all the way straightened out. Making it, you know, invaluable for even high reach objects, not as an excavator, but even as a crane. Too bad we don't have cables. Keen, please. Or it allows you to reach further with the excavator, or, you know, lots of little tiny uses, but somewhat clang-inducing. I also have a traverse, as you'd probably expect, and a couple other features like an elevatable cab. That's sort of a work in progress. I'm going to work on that. The drive system is a 7x2 for each track. It's got 5x5 wheels, and for a total of 28 drive wheels. The central traverse is actually a large grid rotor that's been more or less magically pinned in place using a couple of rotor tricks. That's what gives it the actual strength to rotate itself, given the massive loading on top of it. Now, a point to make, I'm just going to pick myself up here a little bit, just so I can demonstrate something. Oh dear, that's going to be kind of hard to see under there, isn't it? There we go. As you guys can see, these landing gears here, they're handy little features that are designed for a special lock. So, if I press the 9 key, that's my manual override for them, that they pop it down and out. Now what the system is actually designed to do is if I run the tracks at any way, either left or right, doesn't matter, forward or backwards, as you can see, it automatically retracts them. So what that does for me is whenever I'm not in motion, it locks me solid and firm to the ground, making it substantially easier to actually manage loads. So just for the sake of this, I'm going to disable the lock for a moment and put myself back down. And we're going to actually drive over to our dig site. As you can see, we're a little ways away from the dark area, so a short little jaunt away. So we're going to curl our upper bucket just a little bit, and we're going to go for a drive. So as you can see here, it has no problem pivoting on the spot. Now we're going to shift both tracks to go forward. Please note the lack there of interaction between myself and my bar. This whole system is designed using Digi's control mod. It's, as the mod says, it's basically key bindings. So the keys I'm using are pretty typical of Space Engineers. I got WASD, up, down, left, right, Q, E, R, and F, as well as the number keys for the tracks. So now that I'm more or less over the dig site, we're going to go ahead and get started. So we're going to disable the override, and as you can see, my landing gears are now locked. So I'm down there. I'm going to actually turn off my battery, and I'm going to extend my bucket out so it's a little wider for a bigger cut. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to begin fairly light. Oh dear. and we're just going to dig a hole basically. I've already gone ahead and I've actually pre-checked out this area, so I do know that there is ore here, and I do know that it's fairly shallow, which is kind of convenient for the video's sake because I don't want to bore you guys digging down all the way down to the maximum depth. Which of this particular unit happens to be right around 60 meters or so. So it can reach most ores. If not, it can at least expose most of the ground and get down fairly close to them fairly easily. So as you can see here, we're just going to go ahead and strip away more earth. So we took a fairly large cut right off the bat, and we're going to come make another one. As you can see though, we're already fairly close. We're already really exposing an ore without much of an effort actually. I wasn't kidding when I said it was fairly shallow, which really makes it ideal for demonstration purposes. Anyway, so we're just going to go ahead and we're just going to keep digging here just to finish our cut. Makes things a little bit cleaner. And as you can see, we have actually already exposed some silicon ore. So it's over there, and the vein pretty much ran right around there. We actually destroyed most of it, but that's okay because, you know, whatever. We're not actually trying to get it. So I'm just going to narrow in my bucket again, and I'm just going to go ahead and start digging. Now, I would like to put on record a couple things. I am on 1x survival right now with Space Master enabled, so that's why I'm not, if I run out of hydrogen, that's why I'm still able to move. That's why it's magic. And as you can see here, we're just going to go ahead and gather ore. Fairly straightforward. 6 drills at about 9 something tons each. I mean, we can hold about 54 tons of ore, give or take. So we're just going to go ahead and make a couple little passes there. We're going to dig some up. So that's probably about full. So we're now going to pick it up, and we're going to bring it over towards our friend, the collection facility. So as you can see, it is strong enough to move. Oh dear. Does have a little bit of an issue, unfortunately, with the weight. You know, as you can probably well imagine, you know, there's a lot of force on these things, and 50 tons is actually, oh, sorry, there's a lot of force to be sort of enduring for any length of time. So I think that should be close enough. We're just going to turn on our ejectors, and that's just going to begin ejecting our ore into our collectors. Now, while that's doing that, I'd just like to talk a little bit about the power usage. Right now, the only power source we actually have is our solar panels, and right now they're putting about 73.48 kilowatts, which is really not a whole lot of power in Space Engineers. That's less than 20% of a single small ship, small reactor. And this ship, when it's sort of in this half idle state, is only using, you know, 39% of that. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm just going to show you here. The antennas is using 2 kilowatts. That's actually a pretty good portion of the power. The rest is basically chewed up by lights and other sort of extraneous functions that are really truly necessary. So now that's done unloading, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to go back down. We're going to get us some more ore. I also want to point out this is probably about the 5th time I've actually had to dig this same spot out because Clang has kept on interfering with my affairs. But so far I've been reasonably happy with the performance of this thing. When Keen fixed the drills in this most recent patch, they sort of broke this machine for some reason. I don't really understand why or how, but to be honest with you, I'm sort of indifferent to it. It's not a big deal. It's, you know, I realize it's an alpha game. They're working on it. Okay, so that's more or less full again. So let's go ahead and let's bring her up. Okay, come on, up we go. A few things worth talking about is I really do wish they sort of made some of these things a little bit stronger. I realize pistons are, you know, an infinite force, but they do stretch, and that stretching is really dangerous. It's like, as you can see with that bucket wobbling under the weight, it's potentially what destroys everything. So another quick thing, a few things to talk about is the actual concept behind it. I mean, while that's doing its job, let's look at the actual joints. The main boom, because it's under the most loading, has an 8-piston array that pushes and pulls it, so it's only actually technically 3 grids, making it reasonably stable. Pretty much every single joint in this system, save for a few at the end on the bucket, because of its weird configuration setup, feature 4 rotors connecting them. That's the only thing that was really strong enough to do so. But, you know, I don't hold it against them. It's, you know, I realize that it is technically a lot of weight for what we're dealing with here. So anyway, so we've emptied 2 loads, and what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to actually go ahead and I'm just going to dig down to the depths. I'm not going to really worry about actually harvesting any ore or anything that's there, because I just want to demonstrate sort of its maximum depth. And hopefully I can get down without having Clang strike me down. And so we're just going to go ahead and we're just going to get into the ground here again. One of the cool things about this system is that because it uses Digi's control mod, there's a lot of things that had to be scripted in, which means we had a lot of sort of freedom. And I do want to give a great big thank you to Sinbad over at the KeenSWH forums. He's actually the one who programmed the whole thing, because I am miserably bad at coding. And he actually programmed in some really cool features for me. One of such features is a continuous locking system. So basically, whenever a joint is not actually in use, it locks itself. It's the safety locks on one of the rotors. And the reason for that is fairly simple. When you safety lock it, it doesn't jiggle around as much. And that's really key here, because we're talking about moving a lot of weight and a lot of mass, and really it's just not fun in that regard. So by locking it when it's not in use, it really does grant you a much sort of smoother motion and a lot less jank. And at the end of the day, that's sort of what makes it such a nice to actually operate system. So as you can see here, we've already made a few cuts. I believe that's about like 2.5, because I had that sort of weird half cut to actually harvest some ore. And we're going to continue on down yet again further. And as we curl our stick in, we're going to go ahead and curl our bucket a little bit and just continue making a cut. Now, as you can also see, is we're not actually nearly to the bottom of our capabilities, but we have already gone fairly deep with this hole. Now if we continue on expanding out, we're going to go down for probably another couple layers, I'm thinking. It's really sort of hard to tell what this thing is going to cap out at. Now, as you can see, each cut is getting sort of sequentially smaller just because of the way the pivot works. If you do want to actually cut a square hole, you can greatly utilize the intermediate toggle joint to stretch out a little further, but just for the sake of this video, I'm just going to be a little bit more quick about it. So going down once more onto the breach. Go down, 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 down. And we're going to continue our little cut. And I think we're at the point where we can more or less just sort of go back and forth and not really worry about it too much. And keep on pushing down. And as you can see, we're pretty well at the bottom of our reach. I'm actually just going to make a little bit of use of my toggle joint to push myself out a little bit further. So there you go, guys. That's pretty well as far down as it's going to go. And if we actually go down in the hole, you know, we did actually do pretty good. We're down in here pretty deep, and you know, this takes care of the majority of ores. There are a few that go a little bit deeper, but again, even if you just do most of the work exposing it, that is, you know, a solid portion of the job done. The benefit to this is that aside from the fact that it took a very, very wide cut and uses very little power, is you can basically continue operating without actually having to really change much. So to illustrate that point, all I honestly have to do is I can now just begin stripping off the next basically right beside it and just continue on the process without any real need to move or need to reposition myself. Now, I am aware that this is not the most efficient system in the world. It was never really intended to be, except for maybe in terms of power efficiency. It was more or less just intended to be a really fun, interesting build and a proof of Clankcept. Just to prove that things can actually function in the game, because a lot of people seem to have these doubts and hatred for words, rotors, and pistons, and after building something like this, I really have trouble understanding why. You know, it's a lot of fun, and I think if people, you know, accepted the fact that the multiplayer sucks and, you know, built a little more in single player, they might understand that rotors and pistons aren't nearly as bad as people make them out to be. And so once again here, we've just stripped off the surface, and we're already pretty much back down into the silicon ore again. And as you can see there, we do actually have some magnesium pretty much directly under us. I'm not going to go and get it, but I think this illustrates its point fairly well. The system is fairly ample, it's capable, and it gets the job done. That's really all I can really ask of it. So tell me what you guys think. Please drop me a comment. If I ramble too much, please let me know. I believe this is actually my first video with audio from me and dialogue, so if you don't like the voice, please let me know, and I'll shut up for next time. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and tune in next time for some more interesting Clang devices. Thanks, and bye-bye.